Okay, so let's get started. Thank you everyone for coming today. If you want to participate, before I get started on any of that, I've been trying to announce that at the start of the videos because you guys don't make it to the end of the video sometimes, and that's where I tell everybody where to go to get critiques in my videos. You go to Reddit, you go to Istebrak.com and go to Reddit. That little icon right here takes you to our subreddit. That's where I pick everything up to critique from. So all the pieces I'll be looking at today, I click new, and I just pick anything that seems to match, any two pieces, any one piece that I feel like talking about. And this is where I take the piece, drag it to my desktop, and use it. Okay, so this, I'm going to try to keep this announcement at the very start of every single critique hour because I know you guys are missing some of these announcements. And please don't skip the announcements. I mean, you're here for, for knowledge, so just give me a break. Listen to the 2 minutes of announcements I have at the start. And then we have the current holiday challenge, which is underway. It is no longer pinned at the top of the community, but I hope one of my mods can do that right now. It got unpinned because I had the Portrait Studio sale announcements up, which screwed all the pins at the top of the Reddit community. So yes, Portrait Studio is on sale. You'll see me use it today. And it is on sale at 50% off, and this sale might go up to 55% off this coming into the holidays and the New Year. So I know you guys like to have New Year's resolutions, changes in your routine, and all of that. And I'll be talking about what Portrait Studio offers. But if you want to use Portrait Studio and you want to buy it and you don't want to pay for the full price, now is the time. Every year we have it at the same time. This sale goes on for around a month. Because it's 2 weeks of Cyber Monday, all of that stuff, and then 2 weeks of holidays, I might as well just blend those 2 weeks together using my blending brush, which is also on sale. Okay, and yeah, everything's on sale, including the brushes. The brushes are extremely on sale. Extreme sales right now. extreme sales. I'll be taking a look at this piece. Someone requested during the queue. Someone requested to take a look at this, so I do that sometimes. And let's talk about exactly what they asked. So I was experimenting with using a digital grise. I'm gonna try to sound smart, but is that you trying to write grayscale, or is that, I've never seen that word before. I'm not aware of this word. Grise. And painting over that here using a sepia raw sienna color. I'm really trying to find a visual style that works for me now. I love a good painterly look without too much blending. Sometimes I feel like it's just lacking a little bit of depth and atmosphere. So that's the key word, depth and atmosphere. When I try to add softer edges and smooth blending, it can really look out of place against the harder, more expressive brushwork. You only choose one or the other. Try not to mix too much of soft and hard. If you're going to choose one, stick with one. It's really a very, very tricky process trying to blend the two, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I'm just going to talk about your depth and atmosphere, and I'm going to talk about it quickly because I have another piece in queue. But this is where he just posted this, so this is where you can go to critique each other as well. You don't have to wait for me to take a look at the piece. If you're not getting critiques, critique someone else. Talk to someone else, and they'll see your work, and they'll recognize you, and they'll comment on you. That's how communities work. Having a community is one of the most important ways to improve. You have to surround yourself by people who are interested in the same thing you're interested in. We're social creatures, and we transfer a lot of knowledge in that social behavior. So that social pattern. So if you're doing a 14-day challenge and you haven't gotten a critique yet, make sure you get a critique. Make sure you give a critique. I do want to congratulate this 14-day challenger. Wow, look at that, day 1. All right, and then we look at the day 14. And I'm not sure if this was 14 consecutive days, and I know they got critiques here, but just look at the person they draw now versus the object they drew before. It just completely became something else. The 14-day challenge is like a tried and tested method. It's 14 days. Hopefully, if you guys can do it, it doesn't have to be 14 days consecutive. It can be like every 3 days you finish a painting. But if you want to know more about it, it's also available in the community tab on my website, Istebrak.com. Scroll down, all the questions and answers are available here. So let's talk about this piece that this student has, and this is digital, so it's good that they can go back to it. I don't know, something just fell and broke. I have no idea what it is, but whatever. All right. So my sound is working, right? Everything sounds good. No weird background noise. Excellent. So, depth and atmosphere has nothing to do with your brushstrokes. Depth and atmosphere, other than the fact that you should not be using small brushstrokes and stuff that's super far away, because the detail is not possible because it's far away. Just so that I could say that and get it out of the way before some know-it-all tries to tell me, yep, rough strokes do have to do with depth and atmosphere. They don't have, your painterly technique has nothing to do with depth because style doesn't change the rules of depth, right? This is a style question that you asked when it comes to your brushstrokes. I don't think you should be worried about that. I think you should enjoy your brushstrokes however they emerge. And as you get better, you'll understand the fundamental rules and which rules to break to achieve a texture outside of the natural texture of that object. Leaves and pine trees and grass does not have this texture. So what are you studying then, right? You're studying the actual natural texture of that object to the best of your abilities with your brushstrokes, with your hand-eye coordination, whatever you can pull off. And then as you get more aware of what it is really that texture is, which is just light. It's just light, what light can do and can't do depending on what's happening on the surface of the texture, on the surface of the object, which is the texture. So if you understand that it's just light, then you know that there's things you can do with your brushstroke to pull off the feel of a grassy field, or the feel of a pine tree, or the feel of water droplets. So it's organic. I'm not trying to make a pun or anything. It's an organic process, and you just have to feel your way through your brushes, and you will eventually find your brush style. The thing is with style is that, though I do say it has to be calculated, in that you have to know your fundamentals to know what rules to break. It's also a little bit felt, you kind of feel your way through it as well, and what you are drawn to breaking, what rule you're drawn to breaking, what rule you're drawn to preserving. So you still have to know the rules. But depth and atmosphere has nothing to do with any of that. Depth and atmosphere is all just understanding the natural world, atmosphere, humidity, climate. So let's start with the sky color. This is it. This is just the answer to the question, how do I make an object look far away? If that was the question, this is the answer. This is not a theoretical answer. It's not one answer of many answers. It is the only answer. And as a painter, it is the only answer you need to concern yourself with. You grab the sky color, you lower your opacity, and you can use a soft brush for this as long as you're preserving these edges of your brush strokes. And if you wanted to, you could also just mess around with your blocking brush. I'm just using my blocking brush. And I'm putting many layers of that sky color on top of that far away object. And then some more on this. And then the light that reflects back will also create an upward haze on anything that is directly above it. And then there is the all-encompassing haze that for objects in the background. If this is a morning glow, then this is what you need to do. If you don't want to do it in that degree, inverse, and then what you can do is select the average color of the scene, which is applied with multiply, and then just darken foreground objects. All right, that's how you create a separation between objects in the distance and objects in the foreground, because they have different interactions with light. Some are eclipsing the light, some are in front of the light with a silhouette. Like for instance, it just depends on where the light's coming from. But the deer is definitely eclipsing some light. And then there's the fact that the atmosphere, the climate nearby, seems like it's a summery morning. One thing you don't want to do is, though it's maybe style, I really don't, when it comes to styling color, stylizing with color is like acting like God, playing God. You know what? There's some rules of physics when you create an environment you can't break, because at that point, what environment are you trying to represent? An alien environment on Mars? Where the color palette is null and there's zero atmosphere. Even then, there's rules of depth still applied, such as compression along the horizon line or stacking or anything like that. So these are pretty universal rules. So if our sun is a yellow-white, mostly white, when it comes to art and artists and what we observe and what a painting can depict. We're not going to paint yellow skies. It's a whitish sun. It's a white sun. So what we have here, it's a, you know, it's a warmer sun, but it has a whiteness to it. All right, so I'm raising the opacity and desaturating the reflection of the water, the light on the water, into a white. And then wherever that sun is coming from, to help explain the eclipsing of the light in front of the deer and the subsurface scattering on its ear, I'm going to just bring in that haze using soft brush. And if you don't know what I just did, I'll show you before, after. And then select the inverse. And then I'm going to get that subsurface pink on its ear and just strengthen it a little bit because it seems to be a little bit weak. And then I'm going to mix it with white because subsurface is a combination of the environment color and the flesh color coming through. It can't just be a pure pink. And then finally cast shadow. So I'm using soft brush because that's what I can use. Again, I'm not focusing on your style. That's yours. I'm going to throw in a general darkening in this area. Why would the flowers behind its bum, you know, be as yellow as the ones directly exposed? They would not be. The shadow of the deer neck on itself. Not too dark because it is a bright scene. And then just trying to do the same thing over here. So it's a general shadow. It should be a sharp shadow. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So I'm just going to darken a lot. And then I'm going to go to before I made those brush strokes. And then with my brush on my blocking brush, but on eraser, I'm just going to delete at random areas so you get that texture back without having to have sacrificed using soft brush. Still the effectiveness of soft brush without sacrificing your texture, but now there is a general shadow beneath and behind the deer, and this one will be a little bit longer, so it's a really important shadow you've got here. And then you've got other things that are missing, which could be the oh, I lost the lasso, but that's fine. It could be the rim light on the top of the deer's head, catching its fur in the morning light. Honestly, it could even be sunset. It's really just whatever. It's all the same. Sunsets are a little bit more yellow and warm. Okay. A little bit here. So you're not just gonna be a noob and outline the whole thing with white. You're gonna just choose those areas that you feel like the hair grows a little bit thicker, maybe a little bit wetter with the deer's sweat, and then on its bum there's like quite a bit of light. I'm all about that deer bum right now. Okay, and then maybe a little bit of like haze bouncing off its bum. Alright, so now it looks like there's light behind. And then this fella right here, same thing. Just at the top. So we compare all this to where you were before, my friend. And you can see it has nothing to do with your brush strokes. The brush strokes are fine. I'd say you could have done a bit more of a clean job with the foliage, because you did render that deer, so just seems like you're being lazy. Do some floral studies, would you? So before, after. She's making it smaller to address the read as a whole rather than any details. Excellent. So someone was asking why I'm zoomed out so much. Yeah, that's lesson number one in Istebrak land, is always zoom out, because how are you supposed to survey like the effect of the light environment, the presence of the light, whether or not your values transition properly from core shadow to light, whether or not you have atmosphere until you zoom out. It's like, you know, God mode. So before, after. Don't expose me. How big is your screen? Remind the picture's so tiny. So what did we do? Can anyone recap on the fundamentals I covered here? And then one last thing, again, don't stylize with color. Just because you have a yellow flower doesn't mean you're going to grab the most pukey, sickly yellow flower. When it comes to outdoor light and outdoor colors in the sunshine, you'll do more to show the white of the sunlight in the flowers than this just deep fall, like stormy fall day yellow. Do you know what I'm saying? So it seems like you're trying to darken a yellow. You'll have a lot more white. You ever looked outside in the summer and you just see a lot of white, a lot of the, yes, there's a lot of sunshine to really bring out the richness in colors. There's also a lot of white and yellow when you're talking about the fact that yellow is bright. It just seems like you're working with a dark, earthy fall leaf in the rain instead of a sun-kissed kind of really bright, strong value of, So, yes, so much better on depth. Thank you. So, yes, I need to see the rules. What did I talk about, Renfell? Can you write it back at me? This is your word. I rendered it. Sorry. But why is she using less than 10% of the screen to show something? This guy's just not getting it. Color needs context for that yellow. Yes. Depth rules. The foreground is darker. The background gets the sky color treatment. Excellent. Bring the sky atmosphere into the background elements. Add cast shadows. Darken close objects. Excellent. We didn't darken by that much. It's a combination. The contrast between the deer and the background right now is a combination of both darkening the deer a little bit and brightening the background a little bit. Depth, atmosphere, separation of the background and foreground, light physics. Beautiful. Right, so that's how you get that bush. How about the water? What did I do with the water? Hey, Emily. Anybody tell me what I did with the water? And I want to see Renfall kind of write his own little notes for me. Sure thing. These are the ideas I'm not familiar with, but I got a little too bogged down with the brushwork and neglected these fundamentals. Oops. Okay. You're not unfamiliar with them. Excellent. Essentially, contrast is reduced as distance is greater. You use the background color because that's the color of the atmosphere. Throw the sky color in the water. And then desaturate. We desaturated the water. That color you had in the water, that pink, murky, kind of, like seems like it's bath water. It doesn't seem like it's reflecting the universal light. The sun haze over the water is new to me, something I've never seen before. You mean you've never seen it, never noticed it, or you've never just seen anyone talk about it in a class? Finally, more white and yellows. This is something I haven't considered enough before either. Water really does some fascinating stuff to color and light. It's so interesting. Yeah. Remember, water is nothing. Water has no value of its own. It's just like glass. It just works with whatever's around it. That's how you see it. Without light, you wouldn't really see anything. But in a dark room, it's hard to see a glass of water. It's hard without those rim reflections piercing through the glass. She's using 10% of the screen so that she doesn't zoom in on any one thing and forces herself to see the painting. Never heard people talk about it, never paid attention to it. Okay. So I hope this critique helped you. Thank you for asking politely. And keep active with the community. So let's talk about this little thing right here. Okay, so I want to ask you guys a question. So I'm going to set up a quick little scene here with my handy dandy portrait studio. Oh, no. Models, add model, figures, female figure, and then I'm going to add a secondary model, a secondary object, basic, cube, and then I'm just going to adjust the cube so that it is just a wall behind her. All right, and I'm going to ask Emily a question because this is Emily's piece. All right, hand sliding. This is going to just be really, really tricky. I'm just gonna close the female. Actually, no, I need it. And I'm going to see, which arm did you use? That arm, okay. Let me turn off enhanced lighting just so I could model this because I don't want to use max lighting settings. Okay, so we are forming very, very simple ballerina arm gesture. So she's moving it over her head. Probably should have waited. And then the light is casting a shadow just like this. So where do you see that cast shadow, Emily? This is just a really, really quick setup. That's why I say you don't need max graphics to use Portrait Studio. You just need a quick answer to a quick question sometimes. Okay, so panning the scene, correcting that. It's not exactly the pose. If I had more time, I'd absolutely take my time. But let's just use a quick little hide joints representation. All right, so the cast shadow is behind her. It's not on a gradient in the front. And then if you just weaken that strength of that shadow, let's just turn on enhance. Well, I don't think we need it for that low light. All right, it's behind her. And so what you did was that you brought in this super, super strong light gradient that seems to be working from left to right. It's how we're seeing it. And you killed the light environment this way. Because what you're doing is you're dressing up the entire scene with what? You're dressing it up with her cast shadow and her face and her hand gesture. But you drown the whole scene in a light that's almost a gradient, because it doesn't just seem to end here as an individual spotlight. And if it was an individual spotlight, it would still be a dark room because it's such a small little laser light, and we would see a lot of shadow circle her face because it would be the only light in the area. So what I would say is turn it not into a spotlight casting the shadow, but a universal, and then just get rid of all of this. So I'm gonna just erase willy-nilly or paint willy-nilly and then delete back the hand. And then you've got light down here. So the drama, the delivery, whatever you're delivering here with the cast shadow, whatever you're trying to say is not being said because you've completely interrupted it with another light that's telling a whole other little Barbie doll glowing sparkly story. All right. So, and then I'm going to just delete at the hand, which is super bright because of that technique that you did, out of sight, out of mind. Don't be mad at me. I did it too. Why worry about a hand if I can drown it in light? I love watching these streams while painting. They always help me notice the mistakes I'm making. Good. Look at all that white. Her hand turns into white. And it was a good hand gesture. I mean, you nailed it pretty much. Zoomed out like this here, expression reads uninterested to me. Yeah, the expression does need a little bit of help. You drew a great hand. It's white only because of that glare. And then we've got this cast shadow. Okay, so that's step one in just making things make a little bit of sense. Let's keep going. And it's okay. This is just part of it. This is just a big step that Emily's taking into creating more illustrations. She's pretty much mastered the front view portrait, and now she's just pushing herself and working on an illustration. So this is excellent. What you're doing is excellent. You're telling a story. There's a hand in it. There's a gesture, and a 3/4 view portrait. It's like an excellent combination of things that is a more mature approach at a book cover instead of just plain front view with no hand. I've seen people with their first attempt have a plain front view with no hand. I mean, you saw the examples I showed you. So, so now you know you're trying something big. 3/4 view with a hand as the first illustration, or the first, you know, not the first illustration. Do you guys remember those cute little Kodama melting apple monsters that you guys saw in the Halloween critique hour? That was Emily's drawing. So it's not the first illustration, but it's the first kind of book cover portrait dealio fully rendered. So I'm just going to correct this eye. As you can see here, it's got an issue. It's kind of just sliding out of the symmetry. So what's happening now is that there's a really, really strong cast shadow on her face, and her face seems a little bit uninterested in what's happening. So the cast shadow can't be the only thing bringing emotion. So what I want to do is just help out the perspective, which is her head is high, meaning that her hairline is somebody's at the door. Abu. And then a raised inner eyebrow is really what makes an emotion come out. That raised inner eyebrow, that muscle, that crying muscle that we have, that ugly cry, is all in the inner eyebrows. You could show a lot with just the eyebrows. And I just wanted to give her an arc so I know where to start that kind of desperate eyebrow that's in the shadow. So you could have a different expression under the shadow and a different expression in the light. And that together will just kind of send that same message. She's kind of two different people. And I'm just trying to get rid of that cast shadow. Just make it a little bit more following the contours. And then maybe do something interesting with her hairline. Maybe give her a widow's peak. Just anything that make her a little bit more interesting. Nothing extreme, just a slight shift. Right, and then again, it's up to you. I'm kind of just shying away from deciding what for your painting, but I would really strengthen that eyebrow, but at least do something asymmetrical with it. And I'm trying to keep those eyes symmetrical. And I flipped the canvas, so yes, it definitely needed to go up. And then I'm just going to use my smudge brush to kind of just clean up over here. Another thing you didn't do is just block away at the far side of the face. So if you're at a loss, just block and you'll kind of find what you've lost in form and then blend your way back to that organic look. I think that under eyebrow area is just too dark. It just depends where that light source is coming from. Maybe I'll give her a stronger little cheekbone. And then some light here. And then the inner eye corner light, which you didn't have, I think. And then I'm going to do what I couldn't do with Liquify, which is just add some more expression, maybe squint her eyes because she's looking directly up at the light. Oop, gave her a black eye. In order for eyes to look squinted, you have to hide some of the iris. And just blocking that shape. Sending back. And then these areas around the eyebrow, you kind of just over painted as well. Kind of over blended, I think. If you're at a loss, don't just keep blending. Find what it is that, what fundamental is it that's making this not work before you keep blending. So now I'm going to blend things back and I'll show you the before. So you can see that far side of her face is now just following that light source. And then now for some color correction. So for the shadows to be dark, like a purple like that, really the whole scene has to be just purple. And there's nothing wrong with not having skin tones if it's a big purple light, you know, stage, if it's all lit up with that purple light, that's okay. If there's no if there's like absolutely no warm light and there's no chance to see that. And then another thing you'd want to do is just darken on all those areas. So there's two things you can do. You can darken around and then just let that single light come in like you did before. So now the difference is that we have way more shadow. Right, which I like this one, or you could just darken her some more against the background. So just these sides of her and weaken that light, that universal light. So we would darken only those far sides. Oops, wrong layer. Okay, so we've darkened those, that's what I mean. Just weakening that universal light source, darkening that a little bit more. Right, and then you could just throw her shadow on the wall behind, like we found out we needed. And that'll kind of make it also complete as a stage. Or I want to show her neckline maybe as a distortion. And you can really distort the shadow just, you know, to tell the story of what she is. Maybe she's dealing with some kind of inner demon, and so you'd actually really distort that shadow and kind of twist it up. Like those Sailor Moon shadow thingies. And just stretch the shadow out. But what you pick basically is like a glamour shot. And so what you want to do right now is just reverse that excessive glamour. And I think I will darken this side. I think it's going to be just a combination of both. And it's one of those classic critique hours where it's, you know, you need a darker scene. You need a much darker scene. Because too much light is just going to damage the storytelling. I'll put that on darken. Okay, and then obviously that hand needs to be less bright. And then when it comes to the face, I really do recommend a much more. What is going on? It's not switching my brush out. Bitch. Oh, really? You're just not gonna work? Okay. so yes, we added the squint, but her eyes are just still a little bit too soft, so I just want to really open up her eyes. Kind of like captured by her own, is that a word, captured by her own, oh, there goes my internet again. Can you guys hear me? Just reconnected. Right. So yeah, she's just, is it captured, enthralled? No. In something. By her own talent. And then just to complete the story, you really have to bring in another element. So more open eyes, as you can see, is really, really dramatic wherever she ends up looking. So she's kind of like spaced out. You see what I'm saying? I know this is not rendered, I'm saying as an example. Oop. You can do that too. I thought I had it in a separate layer. So before, she's a little bit soft, a little bit large, the eyes, and then after. And then, so I recommend that definitely. Kind of just make her into a zombie almost, but it's all up to you what you would do with your story. And then we've got how dark the cast shadow is, which is just too dark. And so based off the surface the cast shadow is falling on, we need to raise that cast shadow out of that shadow. So just use nearby values to soften that cast shadow. But it's not gonna hurt, and there's no law against just making the whole scene purple if you have to. If not, then desaturate the purple way out of that that shadow here and bring back some skin tone. Okay. So other things that you could do is just a different crop. So if this is a book cover, you really need a different crop. So what would a different crop offer? What would a different lean in the scene or a different horizon do for the scene? Maybe a smaller, so where you would put the titles of the book cover. I would just kind of push her off to the side. And if it was me, the changes I would make would be really, really drastic. So things I would do, I would just really, really try to make her feel like she's just in a state, in a trance. So bear with me while I really, really shift her perspective. So I'm going to make it seem like we're looking up at her while she's tilting her head all the way up. And then that hairline goes all the way up. And then the bun hides. Depends on where the bun is. You don't really have to do a lot. And that ear is nice and low already. And then I would give that nose a little bit more of a turn. And then more cheekbone. Where is that jaw? Just trying not to destroy the face. These are my changes. This is where my kind of influence would come in. So I think there's like a sternness that comes with the eyebrow arc, but the desperation and the struggle comes with the inner eyebrow. And then the asymmetrical mouth. Maybe the upward tilt and the lip. And then just like try to if liquify will help me really push that head upward. So I hope it looks like she shifted her head up. And then flip the canvas. And then oops. Flip canvas, filter, liquify. And then just really push out her chest, like she's just taking that deep breath. And then I would do one crazy change, which is just pull her face outside of, oh geez, pull her face outside of. It's kind of hard to know exactly like how to describe, but it's just cranking her neck back. So it's just more of like a really, really strong single frame, like a pirouette. All right, so we've got gesture, changes, we've got expression changes, we've got changes across the board. We've got light environment changes. Right, so stronger gesture this way. And I'm trying to just round off the chin. And then the hand is there. Alright, and then one thing I would do even more so, just to get that drama and that movement, I would try to do something like that. Really mess with the rotation, just to exaggerate that motion. And then if you feel like the face was changed too much, you can liquefy that back to proportion. And then just exaggerate every feature. Maybe open her mouth a little. And you can keep her eyes partially open, or partially closed, or whatever you want to describe it, but I would say opened eyes. And that's just adding more light, canceling out most of that shadow. Is really going to change the expression a great deal. It's going to add a lot to it. She's going to feel more intense, more like, again, these are my changes, more entrapped in whatever spell or thing that's forcing her to dance, or whatever emotional experience she's going through that has become the book cover. So you as the artist have to, depict what it is the writer is writing. And in this scenario, which is the mock assignment, the mock, commission, this is what the writer wanted you to paint. And so there's a reason why. Right? There's only so many reasons you paint the full portrait in, and that's because this character is important. We need to see their face, some kind of struggle or some kind of key moment in the narrative or the plot. So you have to try your best to push every design aspect, and that's why there were changes across the board, because we had to change the expression, which you have to push. Light environment, which you have to dramatize. The gesture, we pushed that really, really far because that's the stories. She's a ballerina, but it seems like, again, these are my interpretations, seems like a twisted dance, you know. And that's why it felt natural to just really distort that pose. And then I opened up her eyes. And it could be, you know, like, what would the cheesy cover title be? Like Dance of Sin or something. No, it could be like a nightmare dance or nightmare ballerina or something. In my ballerina shoes. I'm being so cheesy and corny right now. What else? Mommy's little dancer. Yeah, it's really stupid. I'm gonna stop now. Yeah, shut the fuck up, Istebrak. And I'm gonna try to just correct some of the Dance of Sin it is. Alright, good. So I'm just trying to undistort some of the distortions, but we can keep some of them. Like, for instance, see how the eyebrow, this eyebrow can be more stern, so she feels in control, but it just depends on the story. How much control does she have? If she has little to no control, you just do that. That's how you show innocence. But if she has some control, you allow the eyebrow arc to have some control over her situation. You know what I'm saying? And that cast shadow was nice and distorted. And then this whole breast area is extremely under-rendered. You really just have one thing to do with the breast. That's it. Lighten one breast. Keep one breast dark. I'm going to say breast so many times, you guys are going to get so uncomfortable. Alright, and that's it. Breasts are easy to paint. You just have to show how one is brighter or darker than the other, and then make sure you have edges for the far side. Easy peasy, instant league splash. And I'm going to push that other arm behind her, just so it's not in the way. And then just clean up some of these things here. Yeah, that's true. Ballerinas are very small breasted. Just go for the big boobs. I can't do you any harm. You're only gonna get more likes. And nobody really knows that, you know? Like, who actually rationalizes the size of breasts in art anymore? Right? I mean, just look at League. Completely irrational breast physics, but everything goes in the world of men. It's a world for men, y'all. We're just lucky enough to live in it. Okay, and then I'm just gonna clean up these areas here. And then if you really want to show like more rotation, you just have to lift her nose up a little. And I wish I had the time to really push this, but you're gonna do these changes, you're gonna render them, and I'll see you next Tuesday, I think. And then we'll go from there as well. So it's in stages, and then I'll re-critique your corrections. Yeah, I'm not sure where I would want to add. And then try to add some more dewiness to the skin after all that, you know, activity. Her skin would be more glistening with sweat rather than just perfectly matte. If you want to rotate more of her face, that way you just have to take the whole face And Hannibal Lecter, that bitch. And you're just basically pushing everything over so this entire section gets pushed in front until you rotated the whole thing. But I like how it's slightly tilted towards the camera. Feels a little bit more like it's tailored for the camera, which it is, which it should be. Okay. Other things I would say, just decide where you want the title, and if you remember, I did crop the scene. So I would say something over here would look much cooler. That way you have a chance to show the cast shadow doing some cool dramatic stuff. I will use the soft brush instead because I'm running out of time. Alright, and you can mess with your Portrait Studio model until you like what's happening there. Make sure the light falling back is just as strong and powerful. I kind of want to extend that pinkish hue back here a little bit brighter, just so she's more visible. And really fix that arm, and it's not you painted the arm wrong. No, the hand feels right. It feels good. I would say pay more attention to the size. I think it's a little too big for a female, and the knuckles are a little too strong for a female. But it was just too bright because you weren't sure what to do with your light. And the reason why I kept the breasts under rendered is just because they're just down toward the lower part of the canvas. So now we have the character a little less visible. The chin still feels a little masculine for me, just because it's not blended, and there really is not an edge to the chin because she's tilted her face so high. This line is gone. So we'd kind of just lose that line entirely, along with the shadow of the neck. Kind of just hides away. And the neck has a lot of ambient light, which is the part of the cast shadow. And then I would just encourage you to keep your, if I can get away with it without, I was about to drop some names with the digital abuse. Yeah, I would say just mess with the contrast a little bit more for the eyes. Still kind of iffy about where to place that eye. Alright, so it feels a little bit more twisted now, feels a little bit more fun. Did I redarken that eyebrow? Like, what is happening with that eyebrow? Did it redarken itself? Okay, and then just that thing I did with the blocking is lost now because of all the changes. But I would reblock, and there's nothing wrong with reblocking either. Sometimes it gets lost as long as you're aware of the, what the process is to correct it and the fact that it happened. Things get lost mid painting session sometimes. That's why I preserve my layers. Not work with many layers. I just preserve history states as layers instead of waiting for my history, which I might lose, just so I could reference back to see if I just made a difference or not. So now we have depth, 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 and we have another marker here, which, oh, the eyebrow feels wrong again. Mother? I think I just gotta do that. And this eye was not expanded. I only did one eye. Okay. So yeah, the hand is your next thing, and I suggest something. I suggest something else. This is just based off my interpretation, so I would do something where her hand is like, you know, chained, and it's just adding to the story of struggle or whatever. Maybe the other hand is chained. Maybe there's another less cheesy, less cheap way of showing more drama, and then you'd have the titles here and here. Obviously in a book cover we never really show the face, so something else you could do where the writing would be bright but the whole scene would be dark is forego the fact that the cast shadow is the main thing, and add another larger cast shadow, which is this one. That's my favorite type to do because it just loves you, never lies. Right, so that's a really, really strong one. And then from there, this is a big jump, by the way, so prepare yourself. Is this type where the face is almost completely hidden. And so you barely see a face, but you see the hand chained up, right? And that's why should have put it in a different layer. There we go. Because it is a very big thing to show a portrait, a full portrait in a book cover. You kind of want to be strategic with it, not show everything, but show enough. And then you'd have the other hand, and then the shadow maybe would be doing something else. Maybe the shadow is the one that is dancing as a ballerina should be, you know, with hands out. But obviously the one that's actually dancing is chained. And then I'm just going to delete slightly. So now you got really, really cool, fancy. Ooh, the shadow's different. Ooh, the girl's different than the shadow. Ooh, there's so much drama here. Right, so you got a little bit of that. You got some of the portrait visible, which was fine for your assignment, by the way, Emily, because it wasn't about showing the face completely. I'm gonna darken that far side as well. So these are a lot of ideas to mess around with, and that's what, you know, drafting's all about. You're just going to mess with tons and tons and tons of thumbnails, right, until you get something that feels right to you. And the story can keep changing. The story is not concrete as long as you end up with a good portrait and a good painting at the end. As long as you end up with something. This is what I would do. This is that artist that you know, what I see with that really famous Mark Simonetti. I love his book covers. Holy God. He's just he's the man. He did like all of the George R. R. Martin book covers for like his other stuff, his other stories. Really, really a talented guy, and I feel like he's never afraid to just hide the face away. And that kind of just, that inspired me, because we're all so obsessed with showing the face. But this is a big jump. Like I said, before I made this change, I warned you. I said this is a pretty big thing. But with the twisting and the shadow saying something else and the hands, I think it's going somewhere now. Let me get rid of the lines here. That way, if we have the other hand, we should just not have another hand. If we have the other hand, we will hide this cast shadow, so we want to show it. And then clean that up. Does that mean I cannot paint the face? I'm gonna do it. No, you have to paint but we have a face right here. It's just not perfectly lit, you know. And we have the same cast shadow, so we've honored a lot of your choices. And that's why I always say, you know, oh, this is my change. This is what I would do, just because I want to make sure you guys do have great ideas, and it's not me trying to steamroll over all your ideas. It's that there are fundamentals and how they'll benefit your personal choices. And then as you get better, you get more taste, right? You get tons more taste. You get better at deciding what is cinematically pleasing, what's new, what's never been done before, what's cheesy. You know, too much light visible is really, really, really cheesy. Write that back to me. An object that is too visible in a scene that should be dramatized. Who knows? It could have been a happy scene, but you know me, I'm like this, the most depressed human being in the world, so I chose the depressed scene. All artists, I think, are like this. I chose a depressed, you know, subject. And then another thing you could do toward the very end is just bring in an ambient light. That'll kind of just help us out a little bit because things are getting kind of hidden. And there would be a cast shadow, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Just that blue light, I think, will help. Of course, we delete. I'll try to lasso it. No! Sorry. Oh, there we go. Sorry, was that really loud? Sorry. Stupid Photoshop. The lasso wasn't even good. God damn it. Alright, it's okay. Son of a bitch. I need to get rid of these reds now because they're starting to not help. Oh, we're still lasso. Okay. Okay. I'm really trying here with this with this ambient light. It's not working. When all else fails, just blur. Okay. There we go. I'm gonna be here forever, aren't I? Just trying to show some bone structure. Kind of where the light won't go past. Super low opacity to amend it. And a little bit on her cheekbone. And then the point that it won't go past. Not too much on the head since the head is further away from the source of that ambience. And it's up to you what you do with the hand, really. The hand at this point it can be anything. It's just, think about it before you make a decision because you have a lot of storytelling power with that hand right now. Alright, and then what you could do is just do one of those really, really cool Frank Miller's, which is the eyes, only the eyes, like completely visible, and it adds to that. I mean, it's not completely visible, but like completely in comparison. Like the whites of the eyes are like super bright. It's just so much more expressive. Just something like that. So you see how we lost the skin tone, but we still have skin? It's not about the skin being super, super, you know, peachy in order for it to pull off a skin. And then one more thing I want to do, which is exaggerate the spotlight, is just complete the circular of that spotlight. So just make it more of a complete circle. So it feels like an actual spotlight circle. Alright, so lots of changes. Before and after is probably just not, there's no point to showing it. But just to show you how you can do more with less color, less saturation, less visibility. Would you like to see the before, Emily? It's just too different. Too many changes. As for this arm, really just think about your cylinder. Start with a better value here. Just darken it. And just choose again where that light source is coming from. Do a much better job than me, please, because I'm completely screwing this. There's so much I have to change. If you can show it. If you wanna, you can. That's fine. Okay. Then the top of the hand would be light. The bend would be dark. But do your Portrait Studio, you know, reference. You do have that, right? You do have Portrait Studio. Maybe her shoulder would be dark like this one. I don't know. Her other shoulder would be dark. With like her neck. It's just as a part of that gradient. Which makes sense, I guess. Alright, so tons of changes, so it isn't necessarily a real before and after. It is a real before and after, it's just changes are extreme. Alright, so before, this is what I mean by like a glittery glamour shot. And after, we obviously took it to a whole new level. A whole different level, I guess I could say. And it's that silhouette right here that's really doing it, so we want to exaggerate that, and the cast shadow underneath, which you can brighten. And that cast shadow and then tilting the camera really altered the depth, added more depth, because it gave the cast shadow a landing stage, and it gave us a background, which is really cool. All right. Okay, so moody, I know. So that's it for today. Thank you everyone for coming. If you saw Portrait Studio in action and you'd like to buy it, go to istebrak.com and go to the store. It's currently at 50% off. It's the holiday sale. It happens once a year. So go ahead and go to my website if you want to grab that. If you want to submit stuff for Critique Hour, you want your work on these videos. How do I post my work on your videos, Istebrak? Just go to my website and click on the little Reddit icon, and it'll take you to the Reddit. This is where I picked stuff to critique from today. I believe Emily did post her piece here. And I will upload whenever I can. I mean, not upload, repin at the top the current holiday challenge, but it's to paint tons of little crystalline, so it's like this, crystalline creatures made of ice, but it can be anything you want. It can be a dragon as long as it's made out of ice. So environment, go for it, go ham, go crazy, as long as it looks like it's made out of ice. Basically, it's me tricking you guys into doing more texture studies and being more aware of your textures. The next one will most likely be a fabric creature of some kind, which is really cool. And it's been on my mind for a while. So you just wings out of little fabric pieces. So no feathers, it would just be fabric pieces. And studying the folds, studying cast shadows of fabric. It's really fun. Fabric is a lot more easy than you think. It's just a bunch of cylinder studies, as long as you know your cylinder, right? But we'll go from there. As soon as 2021 hits, I'll be doing a little bit more of a different take on all these challenges. I'll try to go for something, you know, every 2 months instead of just having a big break. I don't plan on buying another house and renovating it for 8 months in a row in 2021. We're going to just pretend we woke up and 2020 never happened, and it was just from 2019 to 2021, and 2020 never happened. Even though it brought a lot of good things as well as a lot of crazy things, a lot of good things happened in 2020. I'm still very grateful. I'm grateful to God. Please don't punish me, Lord. But it has been one hell of a year. My personal work has gone down. It's just been a lot of work, and I got coronavirus, and I thought I was gonna die, and I couldn't taste food for 3 months or 2 months, and I was scared of the police, so I didn't get it treated, but it stayed in my house, don't worry. Yeah, it was just crazy, man. So I plan on having like a big stream goodbye to 2021 sometime before the end of Critique Hour, which should be mid this month. The 17th is going to be the due date for the challenge. So we got 5 more critique hours, and then I'm done until the 5th of January. So I'm going to have quite a bit of a break, which I really need. So the 17th is going to be the last day of Critique Hour. It's going to be the Critique Hour for the Winter Challenge. Portrait Studio sale will last well into the new year, probably 2 weeks into the new year, just because people are still, you know, they just got gift money. They want to choose Portrait Studio as their gift, whatever it is. I usually get lots and lots of requests to extend the sale after the 1st, and then I just you know, turn it off sometime around mid-January, something like that. So it's gonna go on for a while. There's no point for me constantly turning it on, turning it off. Such a pain in the butt. So it's gonna be on sale up to 55% off soon as well. It's currently at 50. And that's it. Thank you everyone for coming. I'll see you guys on Thursday the 3rd. I hope you guys learned something today. If you did, consider joining me on Patreon as a $1 patron. I really appreciate the support for everyone who's answered the call. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next class. Bye.